Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Thank you so much for coming out. My name is Michael Antonelli. I'm the publisher of Tigard Life. This is the first one of these that we've done, so I'm a little nervous. Please excuse that. I wanted to start off by thanking a few people. First of all, I'd love to thank every one of the candidates for coming out. We had just about everybody come out. There were a couple of people that weren't able to make it tonight. As soon as I finish up, we're going to allow each of them to introduce themselves, and that's how we'll start the evening. So we've been publishing Tigard Life for about 6 years now, and it's mostly been a labor of love, especially over the last couple of years during COVID. We've had some challenging times, but we've been able to persevere, and I attribute that to all of you guys that are reading the paper. I would like to thank all of our advertisers that make it possible to continue publishing a community paper, which isn't an easy thing to do in today's environment. We have a couple of reporters that are here tonight, and you've probably read a lot of their stories, so I just wanted to introduce them very briefly. We have Holly Goodman. Holly, would you mind standing up? And Barbara Sherman, who has been a fixture in Washington County reporting in the news business for many, many years. So one of the things that we like to do is every time they write a story, if we have room, we include their contact information down at the bottom of the story. So please feel free, if you ever hear about somebody that deserves recognition in the community, we would love to hear from you. That's where the vast majority of our stories come from, suggestions from people in the community. So reach out to us anytime. We'd love to hear from you. The next person I'd like to thank is Dan Murphy and the Broadway Rose Theater. We are extremely fortunate to have such a nice theater in our relatively small town, and they do amazing world-class productions here. So I'm sure a lot of you have been to them already. If you haven't, you should check them out. They're getting ready for the new 2023 season and announcing a bunch of shows for the upcoming year. I also wanted to give a shout out to Brandon Peterson. Without his help, we would not be videotaping this tonight. We're actually live streaming as we speak, and this will be available on the Tigard Life Facebook page, not only tonight, but in the near future. So if you want to go back and reference anything, feel free to do that. And for those of you guys that are out in the in your living rooms watching this online, please share the Facebook post, and that will allow other people to know that this is available. You know, one of the things we do with Tigard Life is we try to stay out of any national politics. We don't even pay any attention to state or county politics. We focus solely on Tigard. And we do that for a number of reasons, mainly because it keeps us out of trouble. But once again, I just want to thank all of these candidates for coming out. These guys are making it happen in Tigard, and we all get to enjoy the benefits of their hard work. So thank you.
Okay. Oh, I was going to give him the rules.
Okay, great.
Were you? Didn't it?
I was going to introduce you, Dan. Dan Murphy, Broadway Rose Theater.
Okay, everybody, I just wanted to let you all know, well, first of all, I'd be silly if I didn't tell you a Very Merry PDXmas opens the day before Thanksgiving and runs through the 22nd, so we'd like to see you all back for that. And then actually the brochure you'll pick up for next year is our 32nd season here in Tigard, so thank you. So I thought what I would do is mention how this is going to work, okay? So at the very beginning, each candidate will be able to give 2-minute introduction where there's a 30-second time, a 10-second time, and then when Mike calls time, that's it. We don't have music to come in and stop you. And then what will happen is I will ask a question, and we will start to my right and go down the row. Then Tom will go next, and we'll go down, and then so on as we rotate who goes first. And during these questions, some of them are from Tigard Life. They're from Tigard readers of Tigard Life. And so we'll ask those questions. They will have 90 seconds, or a minute and a half, sounds longer, right? To be able to answer, where we will go call time again. If in fact there's a rebuttal, which I hope there's not, that would be a 30-second, and according to my, it's at my discretion. So with that, then we will go ahead, and then at the end of the questions, we will then give another minute and a half opportunity for any closing remarks, and we'll just rotate it that way, okay? Everybody get it? Good. Oh, that's not. All right, ready? Okay, here we go, and we are going to start with E, okay? And you all are sharing mics as need be. So this first question, does the candidate have any plans for making Tigard more family friendly? We love Tigard, but have to...
Intro? What are your rules? Intro?
Oh, for gosh sakes.
That's why these guys are the city leaders.
Is this the dress rehearsal?
Oh my God.
Dress rehearsal?
Okay, ready? Who are you? Go.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for coming, and thank you, Tigard Life and Broadway Rose Theater for hosting this event. My name is Ikan Hu. I'm running for Tigard City Council. I'm a long-term resident of Tigard. I've called Tigard home for the past 16 years. In my day job, I'm a lawyer. I work with food, drug, and cosmetic companies to help them navigate through the complex regulatory framework of the Federal Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA. I currently serve as the president of Tigard Planning Commission, and I've been on the Planning Commission for 7 years. In addition to the Planning Commission, I've also volunteered on a couple of board and commissions, both at the city and state level. I never thought I would run for public office, but that all changed when I heard that 3 of our 4 city councilors are leaving their post, and we're going to have a new mayor next year. I truly believe that my hands-on experience working with the city, as well as with the state and federal government, will make me an asset on the young city council. I'm honored to have earned endorsement of many elected local leaders and community organizations, and a few of them are here. Thank you for being here. And I hope you will join them in voting for me, Ikan Hu, for Tigard City Council. Thank you so much.
One thing I forgot to mention, in order to keep things moving quickly and to be respectful to all the candidates, no applause, no boos. Let's save that for the very end of the evening, and that'll just help things to move forward quickly. Thank you.
Great. Okay, Tom.
Okay, I'm Tom Anderson, and some of you may know me. I was on Planning Commission as well for 7 years, and president for that, or for a couple of years of that. And I was on City Council from, 2017 through the 2020 years. So, right at the beginning of COVID. And I was on, Mayor Cook's council for 2 years, and then Mayor Snyder's council for 2 years. And I served with Councilor Goodhouse and Councilor Liu. So that was a very rewarding time on council. We did a lot of good things, and I grew professionally and grew into my role as a councilor. It would have been kind of a natural thing to just run for my second term. However, at that same time, Metro Council had an opening for our district, and a lot of my skills kind of aligned with that Metro job, affordable housing. We were in the thick of the Southwest Corridor project. And the urban growth boundary, I kind of have some knowledge about that. So, however, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you talk to, I lost that race. It's, it's no fun to lose that race, but I do think that I dodged a bullet on that one. Because really what I wanted to do is just stay in the community. And so I've had 2 years to reflect. I didn't know that I was going to come back on council, but like it's been stated, there's been a lot of turnover and a new mayor. So I think that I can, my experience on council from previous can help. And so that's why I'm running. So thank you for being here, and we'll answer some questions here soon.
Great, thanks. John.
Good evening, everyone. Councilor John Goodhouse. Thank you to Mike for Tigard Life for having this, Dan Murphy with the Broadway Rose, and Brandon for making this available for people that can't attend to see this. I'm a lifelong Tigard resident, lived in Tigard my entire life, went through the Tigard Tarleton School District, through the school system. My kids went through that school system as well. Both my wife, who's in the audience, and myself are both business owners on Main Street in downtown Tigard, active in the community, and we give back a lot to the community as well. And something when I'm also endorsed by the Tigard Police Officers Association and many community members, businesses, and so forth throughout the community. As you can see, a lot of support through the community. Big part of what I did is on council recently is during COVID. At the beginning of COVID, I worked with a lot of the residents. I had a Zoom call I had set up every week that helped residents through the pandemic kind of answer questions, answer during that scary time what was going on. Also during that time, I was on a weekly call with the governor's office, the Oregon Health Authority, working with many businesses in our community to help them out. Two big businesses, the Tigard Bowl and the Joy Theater, really worked with them because those are anchor businesses that have been around forever in our community, and both of those are going to go under. And I really fought for them, helped with them through the governor's office, and also through council, kept pushing to get more CARES money and so forth for our businesses to help them out. One of the big things that's been mentioned is the experience and availability really matters on this election. We have 3 seats for council up, and we have the mayor's race. We have one seat basically that's returning, which is a 1.5-year seat with Councilor Shaw. So this really is going to be about who's got the experience. I've been on the council for 8 years, been involved in the region, statewide and nationally, and have the availability to represent the city, which is really important. With a city our size, we need someone that's going to be available anytime to be able to go nationally or to Salem to represent the city. Thank you, and vote for me on November 8th.
Great, thank you. Heidi.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Heidi Lube, and I'm a mom, finance leader, native Oregonian, and first-generation American. 4 years ago, I applied to be on the budget committee, wanting to get involved in my town. I didn't know a single elected official, and I'd never been involved in Tigard government beyond paying my utility bill every month. I followed the city, and I knew what was going on, and during my budget committee interview, we had robust discussion, and it was suggested that I apply for the open council position, and the rest is history. I've spent the last 4 years dedicated to working alongside community members, businesses, and organizations to better understand what Tigard is going through and our needs. I'm running for mayor because I love living in Tigard, and I want Tigard to be the kind of community that I want to raise my young family in and continue the work that I have done since serving on council. In my time in council, we've responded and supported our community, businesses during COVID-19, passed a public safety levy, created the Public Safety Advisory Board, approved affordable housing, including senior housing, extended the urban renewal plan for downtown, approved and funded Universal Plaza, so we have a universal gathering place for our community, and a higher bond rating, to name a few things. Everyone has the right to feel safe in Tigard and to feel welcome. As mayor, my top issues are community safety, where everyone can feel safe here and address our houselessness crisis, affordable housing to include all housing types available, transportation, including a study on 99W, because it can be scary to drive on 99 sometimes, and building new streets in Tigard with a complete vision ensuring all users are safe. A thriving economy bringing more restaurants and businesses to Tigard, sustainability to protect our natural resources and make Tigard carbon neutral, and equity to ensure everyone is welcome. I'm excited to spend more time with you tonight and answer your questions.
Thank you. Nick.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming out. So who's excited for all the political ads to end? Mine included. I know I sure am. For those of you that don't know me, because I haven't inundated you yet, I'm Nick Hess. And my political story starts some March 13th, 2020. My wife and I opened up a cooking class business right at the beginning of the pandemic. Probably the worst possible time you could do anything food related. We know that now. It was a struggle for a long time, especially as a new business. And we didn't realize, I think a lot of our elected groups forgot that new businesses exist, and there were no PPP loans, there were no EIDL loans, there was no grants for new businesses. You had to have been in business for a year. So it was a real struggle. We fought for, 2 years of the open and close. And I learned from that our elected officials have forgotten who they work for. And that's what got me riled up and ready to serve my community. I was always raised the person that if you see a problem, you do something about it. And that's why I decided to run for mayor, because I see a problem and I want to fix it. For the last 23 years, I've been running my own businesses. I built them from the ground up. I have staff in 7 states. I work nationwide. I know how to get things done. I know how to bring people together with diverse personalities and get them to the table to find a resolution to problems. And that's the type of leader that I want to be. I want to be engaged. I want to be active. And I have the time, I know it's been mentioned, not everybody has the time, I have the time to dedicate 100% of my time to this. I have taken a step back from my company for the last 14 months, and I have no plans on going back. So I will be a full-time mayor for this city and dedicate myself and my knowledge as a CEO to make things better for everybody here in Tigard. Thank you.
Thank you. Maureen.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Hold on. Is that on?
I am red. Okay. Hello. Does that sound better?
Thank you. Start the clock.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan. I'll start over again. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for taking the time to be here this evening or to watch us live. Thanks to Tigard Life and to Broadway Rose for offering this opportunity for us. My name is Maureen Wolf. I am running in the 2-year open seat, and I am thrilled for this opportunity. I have lived in Tigard for over 24 years, and I have a deep commitment to this city and this community, and quite frankly, that's why I'm running for city council. I'm a proud Tigard mom of 2 high school graduates from Tigard High, and this has been a great place to raise my children. To know a little bit about me, my professional background is in accounting and finance. Early in my career, I was a licensed CPA. I don't currently practice. I've spent a lot of time in program management, in education, and nonprofits. And then most recently, I served 12 years on the Tigard-Tualatin School Board. And I felt that that is a really important experience that prepared me for this opportunity to run for city council. During that time, I led many of those years as chair and vice chair. I'd like to share something. When I started on the board, it was 2009. It was the time of the Great Recession. I learned very quickly what it means to make hard decisions with limited resources and having to work through with the people that impacted. Districts are 85% staff members. I also understood the real importance of reserves and how you manage your organization during tough times. It was one of my top goals as we came out of the recession to rebuild those reserves, to be prepared for the next downturn. I support where the city has been headed. I looked at the budget. I think their focus areas are important when it's economic recovery, fiscal health and reserves, and equity and inclusion. So I'm excited for this opportunity to discuss. My son said on the way out, just keep it real, Mom, and that's what I'm going to do.
Okay, thank you. Karen.
Thank you for having me. My name is Karen Morello, and I'm also running for the 2-year Tigard City Council position. I am a mom as well of 2 boys, one in elementary school and one at Tigard High School. I'm also a mortgage lender, a real estate investor, and a landlord. So housing is very important to me, and what we're dealing with in Tigard in particular regarding affordable housing and homelessness are 2 of the key points that I hope to make a really big difference with on the City Council. I also have been very involved with the Tigard Chamber of Commerce as a business owner, and I have been involved with the businesses in Tigard and witnessing what Nick was talking about, where businesses in Tigard really suffered through COVID, but they're not done suffering. And so even though they're still in business, I think it's really easy to forget that they still need our help and they still need our support. And so that's a part of what I want to do as well, is to support them and help them get through these times, and also to bring new businesses to Tigard, make Tigard a little bit more exciting, and new restaurants, new businesses. Keep us here. Let's keep our money here. Let's keep our time here. We'll commute less, we'll take care of some of those transportation issues naturally, and we'll be supporting local businesses, which is really important for me. I reached out to some members of the City Council when I decided to make this move to City Council, and I wasn't received well, or I wasn't communicated back with very well, and that's one piece that I really want to make a difference in as well. That's a big motivator for me. It looks like the Tigard City Council has about a 40% success rate in customer service right now, meaning 40% of people who reach out to City Council are satisfied with the results that they get. 40% is not good enough. It needs to be better than that. And that's what I'm here for, is to be a voice for everybody in Tigard, to get back to you and also to listen to you.
Great, thank you. Okay, now we're going to start with the questions. And this first one is from Tigard resident Christine Chrisman. And we're going to start with you, E. Does the candidate have any plans for making Tigard more family friendly? We love Tigard, but have to travel to nearby cities to do a lot of stuff with our small kids. A kids pool, splash pads, play parks, anything like that, especially indoors, would be amazing. So how would you go about that?
Thank you for that question. For me, since I'm a daily user of a park, especially Cook Park, I will focus on expanding the facility we have at our park. And I know that the city does have a goal of making all our neighborhood within 15 minutes of walking or biking to a park or greenway, but unfortunately, we're only about 50% there. So one of my focus is really just to continue that trend and really push the city to make sure that every household can either walk or bike to a park or greenway within 15 minutes of walking or biking. And I was talking to one of the audience members in the hallway, and they were concerned about the lack of sidewalks. And we will talk more about that during the transportation section, I'm sure. But I joined the Tigard Planning Commission and the Transportation Advisory Committee 7 years ago. Is exactly because there's no sidewalk by my house. I live right by Fowler Middle School, and it just breaks my heart to see middle school kids walking home on a street that has no sidewalk or even shoulder. So another part of my plan is to really push the city to install more sidewalks, especially by parks and schools, so it will make family more easily get to those facilities.
Great, thank you. Tom?
Well, interesting that you mentioned splash pads, because the Universal Plaza will have a splash pad when it opens. We are lacking with small kids. If you have small kids, the Park and Rec department, specifically the Recreation department, obviously couldn't do its work during COVID, but they have pop-ups around a lot of the different parks during the summer, and your kids can get out there and get some exercise, and you can join them. There are concerts in the park, movies in the park, programs at the library. So you just kind of get plugged in. My kids, it wasn't actually through the city, but they started sports, and that's where we started getting a sense of community with the parents and the other kids, and then that just kind of snowballed, and pretty soon you knew all of Tigard, right? So that's kind of how it works. And but look forward to that splash pad. It's going to be a big hit.
Thank you. John?
Thank you for this question. Living in Tigard my whole life, I remember on Main Street, there used to be a parade. It would start at the Bi-Mart parking lot, go down 99W, and you'd end up at Rite Aid. We'd have the cruising Tigard, we'd have all the collectible cars and so forth there. And that's something I always missed. And back in February, Florian Rocanio and I kind of talked about doing a music festival. First, I kind of wanted to do an idea Main Street, but we ended up doing a big music festival that went on for 3 days that brought 7,000 people downtown to downtown Tigard. The businesses had some of the best sales forever down there, and it brought families, it brought people down there, brought community together. People said, this is what Tigard used to be like, this is what we need as a community. And it really brought people together, and that's what I want to see more, and I've been working on. Rather than waiting for someone to bring those projects or those activities to bring everyone together, I stepped forward and worked on that. And also with the parks and recs and so forth with our youth, is that I've voted for and encouraged on council that we keep the park fees low for sports programs. As Tom mentioned, you know, if we have Little League, soccer, all those, in order for them to be able to keep those programs going and keep the youth involved, we need to keep those parks and recs fees low and available for people to be able to do those programs. So I continue to push for those and keep up with ideas that bring people together, keep them in our community, and keep people coming downtown or through the triangle to be able to eat, play, and have fun.
Thank you. Heidi.
I feel this question deep in my bones. I have a 2-year-old, and it is difficult to keep my rambunctious 2-year-old and get her energy out and to give her new ways to play. I certainly think the recreation program in Tigard, as the liaison to the PRAB, the Parks and Rec Board, I've been fighting for continued programming. It actually was quite robust through the pandemic. They did a bunch of different things to keep people engaged and keep kids engaged. We do have different areas like Rose City Futsal. There's a cool place called Lake Playland, but it's not enough during the winter months. And so some of the things that we can do, I think as Oregonians, there's no such thing as bad weather, but bad gear, is ensure that our parks are prepared for those muddy times. Some of our newer parks have the turf, and so it's not quite as muddy. And I'm excited what we're doing at Cook Park with the accessible playground. So, but I hear it in my bones, and my brain starts to think of, we're excited to get restaurants here because I don't want to leave Tigard. I want to be able to stay in Tigard. So how can we incentivize family things? I started thinking about the wonderful pottery place on Main Street, and maybe we can get them to do some sort of kids activity to make it a family activity and to keep those kids busy. So that's where my mind is going. But yes, I feel this deeply, and it's a great question, and we need to continue to push for more for families and especially little kids to do when it's raining.
Great. Thank you. Nick.
Thank you. Well, I have a 10-year-old at home, and I can tell you there's not a lot of fun things for a 10-year-old to do in Tigard. I agree, wholeheartedly. Sky High leaving was like the end of the world. And Defy just doesn't cut it. It's not the same. And plus, that's in Beaverton. We don't want to go there. We want to stay in Tigard. So, I'm going to take a little bit different approach to this because I don't think this all falls on the city. I mean, there are pieces, but I think a lot of this comes back to building an environment that businesses want to come here. We have to create the right stir of the pot so that those businesses that have those cool activities want to be here. They want to open up in Tigard. They want to pull in the Tigard residents because we want to spend money there, and they want us to do that. And that's what it takes. If we have a thriving economy, then those businesses will come here. We have to have the space for them. We have to have the right materials, parking. There's a reason why a lot of businesses struggle to go downtown. Heck, my cooking class business, we got offered a space downtown, but we're like, how many parking spots? 2? That's not enough. Nobody wants to do that. So you have to have the right metrics for people to be able to have their business here, and then they'll come. And I think we could entice them enough to bring cool things. There's lots of unique things out there with virtual reality, with modern types of movie theaters, and even modern types of bowling alleys. Somebody was just telling me about some kind of chicken bowl thing that's around. And there's just we can innovate, have new things, but we got to have the right tools for them to be here. So,
All right, thank you, Maureen.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, it's interesting to kind of be at the end of the question because I see kind of a combination of all these decisions. There's a lot, I think, of our youth association sports programs for our students to engage in. I think there's a gap for our youngest children. And so what are those opportunities to bring businesses in and create those facilities where families can go and play? I think there's great partnerships with programs in our district fields as well, and continue to build those partnerships to create opportunities for our students. So I really see enhancing our parks, as I think John and many of you mentioned, and Tom did as well, if it's the movie nights at Dirksen Park, or the festivals that have been held. I've had an opportunity to volunteer at a couple of them, and very well received, and excited to see community members out engaging in our community. So I think through the city, if it's leveraging our parks, holding those festivals, holding opportunities for movie nights, enticing our businesses to come and grow their own business here that brings families in for activities is a great way. And then leveraging our partnerships with our schools and our parks and our fields that already are in place. So I think there's tremendous opportunity to build and grow and learn a little bit more about what's here already. And with that, I'll pass and I'll give it to Karen.
Okay, thank you, Karen.
Yeah, this is interesting to be at the end because I feel like everyone took all the answers already. But I think Tigard's actually done a really good job of having spaces available. What I think may be a disconnect is people knowing what's available. When my older son was about 6 or 7 years old, I signed up for Portland's $5 5K races. And what they do is they sponsor races in different parks for $5, and they're 5Ks, so you can run them and you can get to know different parks in the area. That was hugely insightful for me because there were parks that I didn't even know existed. And I know about a lot of the parks in Tigard because I made it intentional to figure out where they were. And I think that a lot of people don't. I think that the city's done a good job of coming up with brochures and different things that show that, but not everybody knows where to look. And so I think that that's our job as city councilors and also as the mayor to let people know what's available. And I 100% agree with John, bringing in music festivals, bringing in things that bring the community to the different parks, and also Universal Plaza and the new splash pad when it comes available are gonna really, I think, open some eyes on what we already have. Of course, I'm completely open to opening new things, something like or Sky High, other things for my 9-year-old especially would be great.
Okay, thank you.
Can we shift the microphones over a little bit? We have 3 microphones on this side and 1 microphone on this side. Might be a little bit easier.
That's what we like to see the council do, share. Okay, here we go. Question number 2. And Tom, we're going to start with you, okay? And that is, traffic congestion is consistently the #1 or #2 complaint we hear about in Tigard. What are your solutions to improve traffic congestion in Tigard?
Well, it's Highway 99. That's what everybody complains about. And I don't know if you know, but most of you do, but Highway 99 is not controlled by the city of Tigard. It is an ODOT facility. That's what they call it, a facility. It's a highway that runs right through the town that we use as commuters locally, and yeah, it's a problem. So ODOT, in its wisdom, has put it on a tier 2, which means that they're going to fix a bunch of roads around the state before Highway 99. So we asked for a study to say, you know, we've had some fatalities on Highway 99, and of course the traffic flow, it's a regional traffic flow. People go to the beach, people go to Portland, and so we need some help with that, right? It's not exactly our burden to carry because of the regional traffic. So there was a $3.5 million study, that's a lot for a study, that was in the Metro's transportation bond last time. It was part of Southwest Corridor. That did not pass. So we're trying to come up with some money. The county's trying to help. If we get that study done, it will show, I'm sure, what we know already to the state that Highway 99 needs some help.
Great, thank you. John?
Thank you. I mean, that's one of the questions that's been around for decades is congestion and what to do about it. 99 is obviously a huge problem. There's going to be a lot of money put towards that, but that's not the only part of the problem with congestion. There's many parts. We have sidewalk gaps. We have gaps in our bike lanes. I've pushed for years to get a sidewalk gap program or a bond measure put on the ballot so we can fill in those sidewalk gaps. We can put those bike lanes in there. We have it where people can have more accessibility to the bike lanes and the sidewalks. They can get around a lot more. We build our communities, and we have new communities going in with River Terrace 2.0. We build those communities to have a shopping center, or not a shopping center, but a grocery store or something that people can walk to. That's going to make it a lot easier on the congestion. Also, we have to work on affordable housing. A lot of people live here, but they go for affordable housing, they might go way out to Dundee or Newburgh or further out, and that's just adding to the congestion problem. And so on council, we have worked on ways, and I've worked on ways with builders and developers to try to reduce SDCs, system development charges, to reduce the fees on those houses so they can build more affordable houses. But we also need to work with TriMet. We don't have very many bus lanes in here. A lot of people, I'm sure everyone sees on their taxes, they pay into TriMet. We pay a huge portion that goes to TriMet that goes into downtown Portland, but we don't get very much bus line service here. Either someone can get to their job, but they can't get home on a bus, or vice versa, they can get home, but they can't get there. So that puts more cars in there. So we need to work more on the bus service and work more with TriMet to get more bus service throughout here.
Great, thank you. Heidi.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not just 99. Hall's pretty terrible too. I would take my daughter regularly to school, and it's tough to get through. And I think, you know, just looking at it regionally, we need to figure out ways to make it less enticing to take your single occupancy vehicle everywhere. So that means ensuring that our trail system connects, and so people can use trails. Had a robust conversation with Sean Martinez this weekend. If you have probably seen him biking around somewhere in Tigard with his bike, and it has signs on it, and he goes everywhere with his bike, and he talks about it all the time. There are some programs in Denver and a couple of other areas that actually incentivize e-bikes, and so to help bring subsidies to have people use alternative modes of transportation. And the other thing is, a lot of us commute. Tigard's a bedroom community. We sleep here and we go out to work and we go out to eat and recreate. So how do we bring the businesses here so people don't have to leave to get the kind of salary that they need to support living in Tigard? And that comes back to creating a business environment so people aren't commuting through Tigard in order to get to their work location, or aren't commuting through Tigard to go to restaurants, or incentivizing other ways to get around. So I think it's a multi-pronged approach, but I certainly agree it's frustrating to drive around, and it can be scary sometimes with the traffic.
Thank you. Nick.
So I'm going to echo the end of what Heidi said there, the creating a good business community, because we want people to live and work here. How great would that be to not have to go anywhere to get to your job? Everybody wants that. That's the dream. You know, I do think we have very different conversations though with the constituents of Tigard. I mean, everybody I hear from wants their car, and they want to be able to drive places. They want to be able to get around. They want to be able to park. And that's not going to reduce congestion, obviously. And, you know, we've been overbuilding our roads for a long time because we didn't plan for these large growth buildings that we're putting in with high density. And we didn't expand any roads when we did it. We left the roads the same. They're still single lanes either way, and you know, the lights hold everything up. You end up with these long backups, and everybody sits in traffic forever, and that's not going to change. We're just adding more people to the mix, and it's going to stay that way. And that's not all local. Some of that's state law that's dictating what we have to do to allow our lands to be used for densification. And so it's a struggle, and we have to find some way to balance that. We have to find some way to continue building roads, expanding roads, and giving the people what they actually want, not trying to dictate something else. But also, you know, there are ways to incentivize other paths, but the goal should be to ultimately listen to what the constituents want and provide that. And I think they just want a little bit bigger roads and, you know, less traffic, and to be able to live and work here. It can be great.
Thank you. Maureen.
I'm just used to grabbing the mic. Thank you. And again, I think it's a combination of all those items. I mean, I'm very curious to see, in terms of a study on 99, what they find. I don't think will surprise any of us. How you solve it, how you build it, how you find the resources to create something different. That will be a huge part of the conversation, and how to get that funded to do any kind of change. To Heidi's point, I know that in the annual reports of the city, it shows a very small percentage of the city of Tigard residents actually stay here to work. COVID has certainly changed that, as many more are remote workers at home. But as our city grows, as it gets denser, our roads are busier. And certainly when I was out canvassing, you have those conversations, and people aren't ready to give up their vehicles. And so how do we create strategically where higher transit mass transit would be effective for those that aren't wanting to be in their cars to help move some of the traffic along in a more efficient way. But I do think that our side roads, they are continuing to be congested, and it will be a challenge. And I think it's something that's hard to answer in 90 seconds and will be a priority in how we think through. I certainly have been impacted in my home, and so it's important questions, and I think upon further discussion of collecting more data. Thank you, and with that, I'll hand off to Karen.
Great, thank you, Karen.
I agree that the issues are going to be solved with a collaborative approach. It is not just 99, it's also Hall and it's also Durham. My family has been making an intentional effort to bike more, and the bike lanes on Hall are terrifying. So we bike on the sidewalk, and that's not what the intention was. It works as long as there's nobody that's walking on the sidewalks, but I'd love to see people walking on the sidewalks and also people that are able to bike without being worried about being hit. So that's something that we're going to continue to see an issue with. And again, one of my biggest things is to bring more businesses into Tigard and keep our Tigard businesses thriving. And so that naturally will reduce congestion and traffic. But in addition to that, I'd love to see a little bit of incentivizing for businesses that aren't in Tigard to allow their employees to continue to work remotely. And that's something that's starting to fade away as COVID-19 is going away. More people are going into the office, and we're seeing the effects of that with our traffic. So having some incentive for people to be able to work from home, even if they don't work in Tigard, I think would help with that problem as well.
Thank you. E.
Thank you. Now I'm the last person to answer. So I think I agree with most of what people already said. Jurisdictional transfer, 99 Hall checked, more bikeable, walkable check, more transit check. And I just want to offer a little more explanation about making road more bikeable and walkable, like what John and Karen had mentioned. It's just, from my perspective, it is, as Karen said, it's pretty dangerous for me to bike and walk around my neighborhood. So if we make those improvements, I will not have to drive to walk my dog every day. I will not have to drive to the park just half a mile away. And what happens if less people drive when they feel more comfortable walking and biking? There are less cars on the road. And what happens when there are less cars on the road? We need less road and we need less parking. And I forget the exact percentage, but I think a large percentage of a daily commute is less than a mile. So if we can all make those less than a mile trips walkable or more bikeable, or at least you feel comfortable doing so, we're going to have a lot less car on the road, and that will really do a lot to address our congestion issue.
Great, thank you. So this next question, we'll start with you, John. And it's, Tigard is considering several options to assist unhoused residents. Under consideration are safe campgrounds, safe lots, safe villages, and mass shelters. What is your position on these options, and what specific steps would you take to reduce homelessness and unsanctioned encampments in Tigard? And that is from Anna DeSalvo, who is a 7-year Tigard resident here.
That's a lot in 90 seconds. To start with homelessness, I'm on the board of directors with Family Promise. And if people don't know about Family Promise, what we do is we help families, we work on a long-term solution. So a lot of times with homelessness, you stay somewhere for a couple days, a couple nights, but you don't get back on your feet. We help with families basically help them with daycare, help them with transportation to and from school, and find out those hurdles that got them to become homeless, and then give them solutions and give them ways they can get back into permanent housing. And that's what we really need to do, is work on a lot of times with people. It's not a quick fix of a short period of time, but we also are working on the safe lots, which would be something like with a church, where there'd be restrooms, there'd be security, where someone, if they needed to, and they could park their car, it would be in an area where there would be security, it would be safe for the community, it would be safe for the people that are staying there, because sometimes people just need that. They need to be able to stay somewhere. But what we really need to do to look at homelessness is to figure out the solution of how to get people back into housing. We need to look at programs that we can basically look at, either individuals or so forth, where we have those assistants. We have a manager that can put them with all the wraparound services. But there is also a part where downtown Tigard or through the community, there is a lot more problem with homelessness. And we have to really work on having more more business going on, more activities to actually prevent the homelessness kind of activities going down there and make it more of a vibrant community and a safe community. But we can do that with all the services we have if we do solutions to work with people.
Great, thank you. Heidi.
Thank you for this question. This is the #1 question that I hear when talking with our community, just in regards to our houselessness crisis. I don't think enough services for the individuals. We don't have enough mental health supportive services. We don't have enough addiction services to treat everyone to get them into more stable housing and in a more stable environment. The Oregon Mayors Association this last week came out with a plan that they are going to run 2 bills concurrently through the State House. The first one is a yearly allotment for every city to get $40 per resident for the city to handle houselessness that is right for their community, because what is right for Tigard may not be right for Beaverton, may not be right for Eugene or Medford, and so on. And so it allows us the funding to go ahead and leverage our community partners, such as Family Promise and Just Compassion, to support what they're doing, as well as the concurrent bill, which is for additional funding for spaces to no longer need just those temporary lots, but to create that housing and that stability. I'm also a huge fan of Just Compassion's plan to have a building next to Just Compassion that includes transitional housing as well as overnight beds, because not everybody wants to be indoors all the time as they work through their issues. And so this is a situation in which they would have a safe place to sleep at night and help get them into stability. But there's a multi-pronged approach, but I like where the Oregon Mayors Association is going.
Thank you. Nick.
Thank you. I have spent the last year doing extensive research on this issue. I've visited over 20 programs across the state. I've seen what's working, what's not working, what solutions people have come up with that are off the wall, that are out there, and where it goes from there. Some of them are really, really good. The ones that we have locally are not so great. They are zero accountability programs. They are not doing anything for the long term. It is all short-term gain, getting people off the streets. We need solutions that are full accountability, that will help us come to some kind of resolution that includes results. Results-driven programs is the only way we're ever going to solve this crisis. So one of those programs that I really like is called Rogue Retreat. It's a multi-phased approach. They have outdoor shelters, and you move all the way through the program. It starts with zero accountability, but you work all the way through, and at the end of it, you're paying rent, you have a job, you've had mental health treatment, you've had health treatment, everything. All of those services all at the same facility. And that's the important key. It all has to be at the same facility. Now, it's great that there's potentially some money coming for the city, because the one thing that people aren't talking about as well is that case law now requires us to handle this at the city level. We can no longer handle it at the county level like we originally were planning, which is a struggle, because nobody wants this in their backyard. That's the problem. You hear that all the time when you're out talking with people. It's like, where's it going to go? What are you going to do? But we're going to have it in our backyard. That's the reality, because we have to have all the services at the city level. We can't displace people from tents anymore. So it's a struggle. Thank you.
Thank you. Maureen.
Thank you for the question. Homelessness is such a challenge, and I think that there are some success stories. I think you have to look as they're unhoused and really start to break down the why of why they have found themselves unhoused. I mean, Metro just highlighted a story of a woman that is now at Viewpoint, I believe, in her success of just that point in time where so many things happened in her life that she found herself without her home. So I think that it's whether you lose your job, childcare is too expensive, housing is expensive. So I think there are strategies to help a lot of individuals get back on track and find themselves in a housing facility. I think we have some amazing organizations working very hard to help those folks get back on track, whether that's Family Promise, Good Neighbor Center, that offer real strategies, offer childcare, training, working conditions to get adults back in a career or a job to get them back on track. And then I also think there's the challenges around behavioral issues, drug addiction, and how you work on safe places, unhoused to be. And I appreciate, as I've also canvassed and chatted with community members, moms are uncomfortable having their children play in their backyard if there are tent facilities set up nearby. So it's a long response. I think there's some good things happening, but absolutely the resources to support those that are in need, find safe spaces where those can reside. And it's a longer time than I'm given. Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, 90 seconds is really not enough to talk about this, but it's been said before and it needs to be repeated, and it really needs to sink in that it starts with mental health. That's where a lot of this problem comes from, is we don't have sufficient mental health resources. I personally, again, as a mother, have experienced this in trying to support my own children this year. We have health insurance, we have access to transportation, and getting in and getting the mental health assistance that we need is virtually impossible. So imagine doing that when you don't have a home and you don't have a phone and you don't have a way to pay for it. That's where the bulk of the energy and money needs to be spent, I think, in helping this problem long term. But I am happy to know that we do have Family Promise, Just Compassion, the Good Neighbor Center. They're doing a really good job. And I think that if we take some time to interview them and find out what's working, what's not, we can come up with a good collaborative plan. They can't solve this problem on their own. We have to be a part of the solution, and it needs to come from multiple different angles.
Thank you. E.
Thank you. That's a great question. We tour a 24-hour shelter that's going to be opening in Beaverton and listen to briefing from Washington County leadership. And I was actually very excited to hear what they can do just after year one of the Metro Housing Service tax of one of 10 years. So, and I'm also very excited about this Governor Association's plan. I also heard a lot of residents that this is their number one issue. And most of them actually understand that this is a complex issue and it will take a lot of money and resources to solve it. But their frustration is that they don't hear anything from our government. They don't hear any solid plans or what they're doing and what the results are. So I think there's a disconnect between what the government is doing or plans to do and what the voters are hearing, because there's virtually lack of information. So I'm not discounting all these great plans, but I think just to add my piece of focus is to, again, as Karen mentioned earlier in another question, is really to increase communication between the city government and the resident, to let them know exactly what the city's plan is and what we're going to do and how we're going to do and why we're doing it. So that would be an important piece. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom.
Well, our police have done well. They've got some dedicated officers just for the homelessness problem. In 2019, there was a circuit judge there was a case, Smith versus the city of Boise. And in that case, they said that you punish somebody for sleeping on the sidewalk unless you have a suitable bed or housing for them to go to. That has really kind of hamstrung our police, right? We can't look at them, we can't arrest them, we can't move them on unless we have a suitable place. So we need just numbers. Passed a housing bond for affordable housing, and we're building affordable housing. It's usually workable, you know, people that have jobs that can't pay the full rent, but we need, we need to get some vouchers to some of these people, to get to some of these lower end hotels and some apartments that are not brand new, because these new ones are very expensive. All right.
Great, thank you. Okay, Heidi, well, this question you'll start us off with. Tigard's comprehensive long-term financial forecast shows the city entering a substantial budget deficit in the next decade. Simply put, revenues are growing at a slower pace than expenses. To correct this problem, cutting costs or increasing revenue will be necessary. How do you propose we deal with this issue?
Yeah, Finance person, this is a great question for me. I think we do both. And so part of the problem is, much like everyone's expenses, our expenses are going up more than 3% a year. And because of measures 5 and 50, the maximum that our taxes can grow is 3%. And so I hear all the time, but you have all of this new growth in Tigard and all of these new dollars. Well, that is actually helping to offset the difference between the 3% and what we are actually growing. So some of the things that we're doing is we're making the city more efficient. We're doing investments now in sort of our internal infrastructure to make the city more efficient. I have been pushing for different types of funding mechanisms that get really technical into accounting for preparing us for later. Currently, an example is for PTO. If somebody leaves, they get paid out immediately, but not earned over the life, so rather than paying for it a little at a time, we pay for it at 100% when they leave. So that's one of the things where I'm pushing to fund that ahead of time and to think fiscally conservatively about how we spend our money. But we're going to have to continue to look forward and really open up communication with our community on what are core and services that you want us to provide, because cuts will be coming in the future if we don't continue to look forward to solving this problem, which we are doing every budget cycle to try to really not fall off the cliff.
Thank you. Nick.
Thank you for that question. So, well, the budget deficit is already here, so we're already dealing with that. Yes, we have a little bit of a cushion, which is nice, so we're not really at that fiscal cliff yet, but we do need to look at how we balance the budget, because last I checked, we're not the federal government, we can't print money. And I talked to a lot of people in Tigard, and I don't think anybody really wants to put more money out there. So I think we really got to figure out where we can cut. You know, one of the big areas that I've already noticed is IT expenditures inside the government. Obviously, something that I know very well, since that's my day job. You know, we spend like $6.5 million a year this budget cycle, which is a lot. And I actually work with other places that use the Tyler system, and they didn't even spend that much with their rollout. So it's amazing how high that is. And it's hard to get information. That's one of the big concerns that I have. There's not a lot of transparency. You know, you get kind of this rough overview of what things are, but when you try to dig in a little deeper, you just can't get the info. And that should be kind of the first step. You know, if we want to build trust with people, we got to have pure transparency so that they understand everything that's happening, where their tax dollars are going, and ultimately that they feel like they're getting a good return on investment. Because at that point, if every person feels like they're getting a return on investment, I don't know anybody who wouldn't be like, you know, I would give you more money. I would pay more taxes because I feel like I'm getting a good return on that investment for my community or in my life circumstances. So I think it's really important that we look at the whole picture and kind of look at it through a different lens.
Thank you. Maureen.
I think this is a really difficult question. You know, I always remembered when we would do bond or levy campaigns for the district, and they'd have a November election cycle, and at the same time, property tax statements came out, and everybody was like, I can't believe what my taxes are, and we're asking for people to spend on those particular measures. The city of Tigard, one of the lowest permanent rates when you look at cities our size, and I wonder how many of our community members really understand that. And that was a factor of Measure 5 and Measure 50. But when you look at a community and you have a higher residential base than industrial base, it costs more for the city to run. So that is a huge component in terms of education and awareness of the fact where our dollars go. $2.51, I think, for our permanent rate. I looked on the League of Oregon City. Tualatin is similar, but it does have a higher industrial base. But if you look at larger cities, Beaverton, I think, is almost twice ours. So I think there's also a conversation in understanding our revenue sources. Our city police department has the levy. Chief McAlpine is amazing at doing her dashboard to try to communicate how those dollars are used, and those resources are important. So I am for looking at the budget, digging in, but I also think we really need to understand our revenue base as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen.
This is one of the reasons I'm really excited to be running in a race where we have the opportunity to have potentially 4 people in the mayor's spot and also city council. We do need to cut costs, but also we need to be able to see what exactly spending money on. I'm frugal and I'm in lending and I'm in finance, and so I love looking at numbers and looking for places to save money. And two things that stood out to me when I is we're spending over $2 million on fines and forfeitures. In the lending world, when we're reviewing people's credit, that's called lazy pay. I don't know exactly what's going on in the background, but $2 million in fines is just too much. And so right there, that's where I'd start, is figuring out what those fines are and what those forfeitures are and why are we forfeiting money ever. In addition to that, $1.7 million for the HVAC system at the library. Seems a little excessive. I'm not an HVAC technician. I don't install HVAC units, but $1.7 million for the square footage of that building just seems like there may be some opportunity to save money there. I'd love to also look into the processes and see who we're having bid those things and if we're supporting local businesses in those changes, because I have a feeling that we might be able to save some money there if we were working with local contractors as well.
Great, thank you. E.
Thank you for that question. I echo many of their comments about education and awareness of our residents, because just like solving homeless problem, investment is in our city. Really, we need to voter support, rally around paying for the investment in our cities. And also, I will echo about reducing our maintenance costs. And I just want to go back to having a more walkable and bikeable society, because I don't know if you know this, but road maintenance is actually very expensive per square mile feet. And we really need to reduce the impact of car on our roads in order to reduce the cost of repair and replacement. So so we need to look at all angles and make sure that we keep our maintenance costs low. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Tom.
Yes, we can look at the budgets. Of course we do every year, and we've got a budget committee that looks and tries to cut where they can. We do have a low tax rate. I mean, we do. State reps, I see a few potential state reps up there. That could be a question for you. Let's get on Measure 5 and Measure 50 and try to repeal that so that we can be a little bit more equitable. People look at Beaverton and they say, well, it look like Beaverton. Well, they get twice as much tax dollars than we do. Residential doesn't pay the city as well as commercial. So I think we're really trying to hang on to our commercial zones for our manufacturing and industrial areas. We're trying to maybe swap a few areas that are older residential that could be maybe scraped off and then turned into industrial space, because that does really more with the city. Yeah, there's cuts, and you're welcome to any budget meeting. They're a little long, but they're interesting.
All right, thank you. John.
Thank you. Yes, there is a fiscal cliff we're hitting with the city, and as COVID has taught us, or recessions, that you never know when you're going to hit that and when you're going to be low on money. And years ago, I proposed, and I think it took 2 years of coming to the budget committee to have a rainy day or emergency fund. I mean, I imagine most people in here have a savings account or a reserve set up, but it took really 2 years of going to the budget committee and finally going to the council to get a rainy day fund put in place. And now I've been pushing to add to that rainy day fund. To be responsible when we're hitting that cliff, we need to make sure that we have a reserve in case an emergency hits us. If we're already hitting that cliff, we need to make sure that we do have a backup. And we need to take a look at just focusing on our core services. We have to, as a city, we need to provide police, we need to maintain the roads, library, parks. We need to take a look at that and make sure those are paid for first, and then after that, ask if we can afford anything else. But when we really take a look at it, the taxpayer dollars are meant to go to those core services. And as Tom mentioned, one of the big things we need to look at with River Terrace 2.0, have a lot more commercial being built, or industrial. That's with people see a lot of the homes being built, and they figure, oh, there's got to be a lot of tax roll coming in. It takes a lot more for city services, police, everything to service those homes. So actually, in a sense, we're losing money on the homes. But if we have more commercial, industrial, we make a lot more money. City of Tualatin, they are a lot more industrial out there, and they're at a lower tax rate than us, and they're doing fine financially because of that industrial property and the intellectual property inside those buildings.
Great, thank you. Nick, this one is for you to start us off. How do you propose improving housing affordability?
Well, I propose starting from the standpoint that unfortunately not everybody who wants to can afford to live here. It is a harsh reality of the world that we live in. And it is practical that we build, I think, 4,800 more units of affordable housing to meet current demand. That is a very big, high up there goal. Not to mention, like I mentioned before, we wouldn't have the infrastructure on the roads or anything like that to keep up with it. So I think we really need to look at what we really want from our community rather than just looking at dumping a lot into affordable housing. You know, I think we should really be prioritizing middle income housing, for instance, so that people have that next place to move to. You know, and that's one of the biggest gripes that I keep hearing is that people are kind of stuck in the same house and they need maybe something a little bit bigger, but they can't afford that next jump. And it's not necessarily that they need, you know, a big handout for an affordable house. They just need, you know, a little leg up to get into that next little bit bigger. You know, maybe they need a 4-bedroom house instead of a 3-bedroom house. But if we could expand that area and make the market move again, we would see more inventory and we would see prices at least stabilize, which would help the market as a whole and make it a little bit more affordable. But on the low-end affordable housing piece, you know, it's a struggle, and we just don't have the space or the resources to build enough for everybody who wants to live here. It's a sad reality, but it is a reality.
Thank you. Maureen.
Yeah, I think that the city has looked a lot at the missing middle, maybe not to Nick's comparison of that 3 to a 4-bedroom, but how do we get more out of our property that's accessory dwelling units on land. And so I think those are some great strategies. I think what becomes challenging as we start to build more homes or multifamily unit homes, that also has an impact on traffic and congestion. So I think the city is trying to look in both aspects of how do we offer more affordable housing for those that want to come and move into our community and or purchase a home, build equity in their home in Tigard, but also we have to balance that with the congestion, because it is not just those major thoroughfares, it is a lot of our neighborhood streets. So at this point, I support the strategies around what the city has been looking in terms of those middle housing opportunities for affordable housing, but it's a challenge for sure. And with that, I'll hand to Karen.
Thank you. Karen.
Has set aside a pretty good amount of money for affordable housing, and as I said earlier, this is kind of the key point for me. I deal with homeowners or potential homeowners on a daily basis, and this is a conversation we're having repeatedly and in more frequency as interest rates rise and also home prices rise, particularly in Tigard. I am a huge proponent of bringing more affordable housing into Tigard, and yeah, it's going to bring more transportation issues, and it's going to probably bring more crime as well. And I think that's part of our job, is to mitigate those issues and continue to grow in Tigard. I don't want people moving to other cities because they can't afford to live here. What I'd like to see us do is look into alternative housing. Community type of housing is something that I don't see a lot of here in Tigard. Not everyone needs to live in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. That might be the American dream, but it's not everybody's dream. Some people just want a safe bedroom that they can be out of the rain and the elements. And so we need to look at what people actually need and look at solutions for everybody. If it's not the solution that would be true for us, it still might work for them. Also, a huge piece for me is educating people on owning homes. That's how they're gonna build generational wealth. And sometimes that means that you have to pool resources with your family members or with your friends, with your neighbors maybe even, and look into multifamily properties that they can purchase and then potentially even rent those out and make those income properties for themselves. So I'm really excited about being part of changing that.
Great, thank you. E.
Thank you for that question. And well, the simple answer is to increase the supply and affordability of housing, right? But the difficult part is how do we do that? And I think a couple of candidates have already addressed a lot of that, and they scratch a little bit on the traffic concern. And I just want to add that I look into a lot of policy papers these issues, and they often address affordable housing and transit separately, but I rarely see them addressing the provision of housing, affordable housing, and transit together. And I think that's an important part that we need to look at them as a whole. Because if we build more housing, for example, in River Terrace 2, if we ever get that, it's great. We're going to have many housing choices and probably different ranges of price. But right now, River Terrace, to my understanding, has really no public transportation. So if you buy a relatively cheap house there, but you still have to drive and owning a car is expensive, that sort of negate the affordability of living in a cheaper home. So I think part of the solution is to look at housing, affordable housing, and transit together as a whole for policy decision-making process.
Thank you. Tom?
Well, Tigard's actually been kind of at the forefront for zoning for different types of housing. You've heard it called the missing middle, but it's cottage clusters, triplexes, fourplexes. We actually have a couple cottage cluster developments that are starting being built in Tigard, and they're kind of cool. Kind of think of like summer camp, where you've got just a bunch of cabins out there, and you've got one local place to park, and people will go to their units. They're neat. But they don't really pencil out for the builders, because builders like to resell those fast. They're great for holds, long-term holds. So you need some landlord or some company that wants to, jump into that. But it's zoned for it, so the city's done its job. The market's just got to keep up, and the builders have to build them. That's difficult. I'm a realtor, and I've seen the market go up and down. So the market's really hot. Well, it was really hot. Right now, it's crickets because of the interest rates, and people aren't buying, so house prices are coming down. So the market rate houses are coming down. We do need some supply in some of the mid-range, and, I wouldn't even be opposed to some $3 million properties. We need all types of ranges for a healthy, ecosystem of housing. All right, I think I'm done.
Great, thank you. John?
Thank you. A lot of times developers and builders are kind of looked at as the bad guy, but they're the ones that will be building housing and affordable housing. And I've worked a lot with the development community or the builders to really find out ways and see what it takes to build affordable housing. They want to build it, but with system development charges, those can be high and be hard to build. I did work on and put through council deferring SDCs. As far as when a builder would go build it, they'd have to, when they first took the permit out, they'd have to pay for that up front. And that means they'd have to carry that loan or pay extra interest on that money, and it might not take a year until all of a sudden they get final inspection, have someone move into that. I changed it so that those fees weren't collected until final inspection, which saved money for builders, which then lowered the price of the home. Also with ADUs is I also presented to council that we also, for 5 years, we waived the SDCs on ADUs. So someone could turn their basement, or someone that had more land could add on an addition to their home, and basically it would be a twofold. Someone could supplement their income by having a place they could rent out, and it would also provide affordable housing on infrastructure that's already built. What we need to do is we need to listen more to the builders and the communities, and we need to partner together to figure out what we can do to have them build it. They want to build it, but they need to work together. And so we really need to do the partnerships, listen and work together with developers and builders to find a way to build this affordable housing for people, and have more listening sessions to talk to everyone so we can actually work on this and have a solution that works.
Thank you. Heidi?
Lots of answers up here. The cost of a house, a brand new house, is the cost of the land, the cost to raise it, which includes all of the materials, it includes all of the labor and the time that it takes. And then the third piece of it is the system development charges that the city charges in order to access the systems that we have already built, such as our water and our sewer and all of those sorts of things. So as a city, we have direct control over those SDC charges. One of the great things that council actually did on Tuesday night. Every 10 or so years, we do a new study on system development charges, and we say, here are the projects that we're going to need for the next 10 years. Here is what we think growth is going to be, and we rebalance what those system development charges are, and our water charges were actually down by about half, which is incredible because we have some of the best water in the state here in Tigard, which I can brag about all day long. And so those are the pieces that we have control over. What we also can help do is to bring some of that land in to build more housing. And affordable housing, subsidized affordable housing is really important. We're short those 4,000 units, but it's also a wide variety of units. So that includes the townhomes, the smaller homes, the larger homes. Everything is still in demand. I live in an incredibly cool neighborhood that I just moved into. I actually have a neighbor here, hello. And it's a multifamily houses, single-family homes, townhomes. It's quite a wide variety of houses in one neighborhood, and it's a really cool place.
Thank you. Okay, Maureen, you'll
Thank
start us off with this next question. With increased housing density comes increased need for public transportation. What's your approach to meeting this need?
Thank you, Dan. I feel like this is a conversation that's been threading throughout the evening of questions. And what's been interesting for me is I talk to more and more people and try to really get an understanding of what public transit, high transit, might look like in Tigard and what our community really wants. What I wonder about is for those of us who love our cars and maybe aren't going to be the first to jump on a bus, are we strategic as we build in the Tigard Triangle, as we build downtown, as we build in areas where we have multi-use, that we have mass transit or high utility transit available. And we look at those busing systems. And so I think this is near and dear to my heart. As I think about middle housing, I just said it, I think in the last question, that as we look at affordable housing, which is density, then how do you offset the congestion? And I think you just have to be smart about it. I think you have to be realistic about what people are going to do with their vehicles, how they're going to choose how they drive. Can we inspire and motivate more electric vehicles, put electrical charging stations accessible in our city? So I think this is, again, it's a big question, and how do we utilize those areas that can be close to mass transit and then really put that into place as well. And again, those are bigger conversations than just local conversations, but thank you.
Thank you. Karen?
Yes, this will continue to be an issue as we grow, but it's really kind of already an issue. There's a lot of Tigard that doesn't have easy access to buses. Bull Mountain area, River Terrace are a couple just to name right off the bat, where we are already lacking those resources, and that does make it difficult for people. So I feel like we've kind of already touched on a lot of this, but I think continuing to try to move the businesses into Tigard. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but really, I mean, just making it so that we don't have to travel as much would make a huge difference. And then if we do end up seeing the max coming in, looking at ways that we can have that go through without taxing small businesses. That's one piece that I'm really passionate about not seeing happen, is making sure that the small businesses can continue to thrive as we continue to grow. So this would be something that I think would be good to look closely at now before we continue to grow, because there definitely are already gaps, but then of course spend some time working on it in the future as well.
Thank you. E.
Thank you for that question. I've been talking to a lot of Tigard residents in the past 2.5 months, knocking on doors. And surprisingly, a lot of them, even those leaning to the right, would like more public transit. They're just more in favor of bus system because they believe it's more flexible. But regardless of their political affiliation, most residents believe public transit is lacking in Tigard and we need more of it. And as Karen mentioned, light rail is a possibility, but I'm a little skeptical because the last time it was presented to us, I feel TriMet is, pushing their way around the city a lot. They didn't really allow the city of Tigard have a lot of say in how the route and the stations should be designed and placed. And that just doesn't make sense, that it doesn't even go through downtown Tigard. So, we have to be realistic and look at, what we can really afford. I would like to have a subway system, but it's super expensive. So, I enjoy, when I travel to other countries and other cities, I really enjoy visiting those cities that have subway system, but realistically, I don't know if we can have it. So, as I said, we just need to be realistic, and we need more transit, but we have to look at what we can afford. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom?
Well, so we depend on TriMet for our mass transit and our buses, and potentially light rail coming through the. That's still out there, whether they change the design or not. That's still a potential. But just talking about buses, I was talking with a TriMet guy just the other day, and he said, well, we're only getting like 40 or 50% ridership out in Tigard, and that's, if they had 80 or 90% ridership, they would add more routes. So, chicken or the egg, if people are using it, they will come out here. If we have more density, if we have people on bus lines, you've got an apartment complex that uses the bus constantly, I think they will come out here. But, we've got to prove that we're actually using it.
Great, thank you. John?
Thank you. I would say that Tigard, we used to be a small city, but now we're a large city. We're 55,000 going to 70,000. We're at the major crossroads of I-5, 217, 99W. We're a big city. We have a lot going on. We need a mayor that's going to talk with TriMet and work with them and say that demand the service we need. Tom and I worked together, and I think we are the first ever city that did a memorandum of understanding with TriMet with the Southwest Corridor that actually put into writing what we wanted and that they had to follow. That's what we need to work with TriMet, and we need to get these transit service and these lines, these bus lines, is we need someone that's not going to take no for an answer, that's going to keep working with TriMet till we actually get the bus service we need. We need to be able to have, as I mentioned before, bus service for people to be able to get to their work and back and forth. There's a lot of people, we talk about affordable housing or people that are underserved. Well, we're not fighting for them. We're not providing these bus services. I know there's going to be a mass majority of people that want to keep their cars are still going to drive it, and that's perfectly fine, and we need to accommodate for that. But we do need to make sure that we have the bus lines and the bus service available. And as I say, a lot of times TriMet or their organizations are looking at a wagon wheel, looking at through the region of a way to get around. We need to do a spider web. We need to connect the gaps and figure out how you can get to communities, how you can get around. I know that there's people that talk about they love to go to the Blazer game or they love to go to the airport on transit either through light rail or through bus lines, but it takes an hour and a half or 2 hours, or maybe they can get to the Blazer game, but they can't get back. We need to figure out bus line services that come to Tigard, that someone can go to a Blazer game and come back, and we need a mayor that will stand up and actually get that done.
Thank you. Heidi?
I'm sorry, really quick. So this is a candidate forum, but we can't ask questions, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Heidi?
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of what is being said up here is true, and TriMet won't provide more buses unless the ridership is there, and that's just basic economics of not wanting to continue to sink money and lose money into bus services that aren't profitable or aren't at least breaking even. And so what I think that we need to do in relationship with housing is build in those higher density areas such as downtown and the Tigard Triangle to be able to concentrate the transportation to prove over time with that high density that we do need that ridership and people are going to use it. Because when I moved here and I was working in the Central East Side, I was like, what is the way that I can get out of my car? This would be great. And it was like an hour and a half either way, which is just, it's not feasible. It's not realistic for a lot of us who don't want to spend that long on public transportation. So it's proving that the ridership is there in high density areas and expanding it outwards. It's bringing the businesses in so people maybe only have to take short trips rather than looking at an hour and a half each way. And it is working with TriMet, but it's also looking at other options, connecting our trails, making our bike lanes safer so people have other options that they can ride their bike to the transit station and then put their bike on a bus and continue on. So there's just a lot of moving pieces to it, but we need to prove that the ridership is there.
Thank you. Nick?
So I think it's kind of sad that TriMet doesn't really look within at their own problems and they kind of blame low ridership on us when it's really a lot of their poor image that's leading to low ridership. I mean, a lot of people don't feel safe on a bus. A lot of people don't feel safe on Max. There's headlines nonstop with problems, with violence, with, it's just they've become shelters in a lot of cases and people just don't feel comfortable with it anymore. And that's led to a lot of lower ridership, which is then impacting our ability to get buses, And so it's not necessarily our fault, but yet we're going to get blamed for it, and we end up with less services, which is really sad. So I think we have to be really vocal about that. We have to be, really pushing back and being like, look, you guys got a problem, but we still need buses. And I think buses are definitely the right way to go. I think the Max line is something that if it comes back around again, I think we should ask the voters of Tigard again. I feel like it's been, was approved and then we disapproved the funding and, I think now if we're going to come back around, we should have more conversations. We shouldn't just let things go through. Things are always evolving. There's, money issues coming around. We're probably heading towards a recession. We should be having more conversations. But we absolutely need more bus service, but we really have to find a way to work them and get them to see that this is not just our fault why ridership is down. It's also on their backs. So,
thank you. Okay, next question, and we'll start with you, Karen. Tigard has a vision of becoming an equitable community that is walkable, healthy, and accessible for everyone. Is the city meeting that vision, and what still needs to be done to make that vision a reality?
Yeah, I think the city's done a really good job with the walkability piece. Like I said, not so much the bikeability piece, but the walkability, I think we're doing a pretty good job. We've got a ways to go with that, and I think we've talked a lot about that today and how we can make those changes going forward. There definitely is a lack of equitability in Tigard, and as with many different cities, but in Tigard in particular, I mean, it's everything that we're talking about impacts the people that are lower income in our community, the bus as well. We just talked about the bus and the ridership. But some people aren't taking the bus because there's no bus by them and they can't get to the bus. So we can't really say there's not enough riders. If you can't get to the bus, then of course you're not gonna ride the bus. And so we need to look at everybody in there. Same thing with the housing, same thing with all of this. It's not just, the middle of Tigard residents, but what about the people that really need the most help from us? And there's a lot of room for improvement in that area.
Great, thank you. E.
Thank you for that question. I was actually skeptical of that goal when I first saw it, but I've been knocking on the door for the past 2.5 months. And surprisingly, a larger amount of Tigard residents want that. They want our community to be more walkable, bikeable, and equitable. And I just want to go back to the whole reason I joined the Planning Commission and the Transportation Advisory Committee 7 years ago is because I lived right in the middle of Tigard, but I could not safely walk half a mile to a park right by Fowler Middle School. And it really breaks my heart to see middle schoolers have to walk home on dangerous street that doesn't have sidewalks or even shoulder. And when Karen mentioned about equitability, sorry, that's a hard word. Not only it affects people of color and people of lower income, we have to think about our kids and our senior members who often, who cannot drive pretty much. So, we have to think about them too when it comes to more sidewalks and bike lanes. So yeah, I think the city needs to do more about it because obviously, after 7 years, I still don't have sidewalks right by my house. So I know it's expensive, and we need to work with our partners at all levels to make sure we have sufficient funding to achieve that goal.
Great, thank you. Tom.
Yeah, sidewalks are more expensive than you think. They're really expensive. And Tigard was built kind of mostly in the 60s and the early 70s when it grew up, and there was no sidewalks that were required. You drive through those neighborhoods and you see those. And they're a little dangerous, especially getting to school, right? So there's something called the Safe Routes to School, And the city has been really concentrating on getting those sidewalks in first. So if a kid's going to go to a grade school, for example, and has to walk, or gets to walk, wants to walk, there's a sidewalk there for them. So Councilor Goodhouse has been one to always kind of push for the sidewalks because they're expensive, and we put money in the budget every year for them, and we kind of, you know, check off a little neighborhood at a time, but it's going to take a long time. Now, all the new developments that come through are required to have sidewalks, and it seems like, you know, River Terrace is lovely to walk around. So we're working on it.
Great, thank you. John?
Thank you. I remember when I first came on council 8 years ago, and I took a look and I said, well, where's our sidewalk fund? How much do we have put away, and how much do we have to fund it? And basically kind of the answer was, you know, whatever spare change is left in the cushions is what we do, and we'll fill in 100 feet of sidewalks. So I asked for a sidewalk gap study, and I'm sure anyone that's interested could reach out to the city and take a look at it. But for the main roads and arterial roads, we're looking at about $110 million to get those taken care of. And so that's where I've looked at and proposed an idea of doing a sidewalk gap bond, where a one-time bond where we could go ahead and fill in those sidewalks, do the safe routes to schools. There's plenty of schools. I live off of McDonald, and there's a lot of people that in order to get to McDonald or Tuolde, they can't cross the road there. The traffic is crazy. And so part of that would be the safe crossings, the safe routes to get to those schools. But we need to take a look at getting those sidewalks, those bike lanes all taken care of. And as far as livability and equability, I've heard a lot of times throughout the campaign, a lot of people saying that seniors are starting to be forgotten. It used to be seniors are always taken into account or listened to or get input on ideas, and we're not listening as much. We need to listen to all of our different walks of life. We need to listen to our seniors and all the different people in society. But one of the things, too, to make equitable was we had a discussion at council the other night and talked about bringing trees and making a more livable area. And I suggested that we need to take some of these areas where there might be lower income or so forth and get more trees in there so they can have cooler homes or have more of a livable environment with trees in those neighborhoods.
Great, thank you. Heidi?
The short answer to your question is no. I don't think that we are there. I think that we have even had robust discussion on council that it's an aspirational goal, and it is a lens in which I view every decision I make to ensure, is this decision meeting our goal? Are we working forward with it? Because it would be super expensive. I would love to have sidewalks in on every street, but the reality is that's not practical. And as we look forward to a recession and inflation rising and all of these sorts of things, I don't believe taxing our residents more at this point in time is a smart idea. It's looking at leveraging what we have, making smart decisions on how we're spending it, using and leveraging safe routes to school, ensuring kids have a safe way to get to school. I think the next tier is ensuring that there are safe ways to get to our bus stops to encourage that walkability and that transportation piece. As far as the equity piece, the city is continuing to look at an anti-racism action plan. It's looking at the way that we people access services for the city, multiple different languages, ensuring that people can now testify by video, by phone, in person. I think one of the great things that the pandemic did is it opened up accessibility to city government in a way that it hadn't been before. When I was sick the other week in a council meeting, we had a really important discussion, but because of that hybrid piece, I was still able to participate and not cough over everybody.
Thank you, Heidi. Nick?
So I agree with a lot of this. We all want more sidewalks. We all want more bike lanes. It'd be great for every road to have that, but it is not practical, and I don't think the taxpayers would really be willing to pay for it right now either. But I think one of the big things that we're falling short on is engagement. And I think if we had more engagement, we would be able to educate our people a lot more on what that would take so that they all know, so that they feel like maybe it's not a top priority for them anymore because they understand what it would cost. Whether that's funding or whether that's ownership of different right-of-ways, whatever it is that's holding us back. If we had more engagement, then more people would know about that and they wouldn't feel like it's something that's missing. It wouldn't be a conversation that's always happening because they already know. But we really do have a lack of engagement. And I think if we're going to look at the equity arguments, if we're going to look at all these pieces, it starts with getting people informed and getting them involved in city government. You know, when we look at different meetings and we go to a police meeting or a city council meeting, whatever it is, you have a handful of people that show up to these things. There's not a lot of people engaging with our government, so they're not learning. They're not educated on what those things are. And we have to figure out ways of going to where they are and building that engagement, being in their face, being in front of them, and fostering that so that they become well-informed citizens and pass that on. Thank you.
Thank you. Maureen.
So I was thinking about just all the different aspects of this, and absolutely safe routes to schools. I appreciate the priority around Templeton, Tualatin, and now Metzger to really build out those sidewalks so that we can have our students feeling comfortable and safe that they can get there without being harmed to schools. I appreciate the cost, but I think walkability is huge. When you're relatively nearby stores and you could walk there easily, but you just don't have easy access, I think that's a huge component for a city to reflect on. I also think that from an equitable perspective in the lens of parks, that's another area to continue to look at. And when you pull up kind of the parks distribution in the city of Tigard, I think there's areas that certainly need to be targeted and continued to have facilities available to those in those particular areas. So I think that there's some excellent steps moving forward, particularly as we focus on communities around schools. I think we need to look at priorities in parks and the neighborhoods where they are built. And I appreciate Nick's comment, always engagement is very important in any decision that you make, and education and awareness of community members and what they're looking for and what their needs are. So I appreciate that comment. Yeah, I think they're step by step and prioritizing first where our children are, but also our older communities where they really are lacking those easy accessible points. Thank you.
Thank you. So E, we're going to start with you with this question. What is Tigard's biggest challenge over the next 4 years, and what makes you uniquely qualified to tackle it?
Thank you for that question. One thing that immediately comes to mind is that I think a lot of us have already mentioned it's a lack of engagement with our community. Whenever I've been a planning commissioner for 7 years, and I rarely, even before the pandemic, see any audience attending, unless they're the neighbor who have problem with the new development. They come to yell at us. But I think I really enjoy knocking on door for the past 2.5 months. I believe I knock on over 2,000 doors, and that's a lot of engagement. And I think we really need to engage our community to let them know what's going on, because a lot of things require money, which is investment in our community. And if we don't let people know what's going on, where their money is going and why we're spending it, it will be hard to convince them to invest more in our community. So I work for myself, and I'm a regulatory lawyer, so it's not like I don't have any court deadlines. So in the daytime, I have a lot of free time to engage with the community. So I think one of my strengths is that I have the flexibility to go out to the community and engage more. And I think that will solve a lot of problems the city has. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom.
The biggest challenge for the next 4 years? That's the question. Well, we need a police department that can actually function for our cops. Show of hands, who has been in our police department? It's absolutely awful. It's just embarrassing. So, and we keep kind of delaying that process of trying to find some money for it, but the time is now. It is just embarrassing. It is so small and outdated, and we need to support our officers better. And if we wait another 4 years, things are just going to go up. So that is, I think, the main thing. I worked on a public safety levy. The first one did not pass. It wasn't very well written, frankly, and we learned a lot from that. The second one, we came back with a lower amount. It was more specific, and that one passed. I think people do want to support the police. There's a potential we had a bond for the library, and that passed, and now that is coming up. That is, the library's been paid off, and so we could potentially roll kind of a no new taxes type of situation and get a new bond for the police department. And there's could be some efficiencies with City Hall, because City Hall, you know, is facing some seismic problems, and we'll see. But let's focus on the police right now.
Thank you. John.
Thank you. Without a question, the number one issue is public safety. Knocking doors, talking with residents, being out through the community. People, this is, I was in a listening session the other day with the chief and some residents, and people said that Tigard used to be like Mayberry. You could leave your door unlocked. You could leave your car unlocked. You could be fine. You could feel safe. You wouldn't have to look over your shoulder. We're not that way anymore. And Tigard, and it's changed in the last 3 or 4 years. Tigard is not safe like it used to be. We need to focus on public safety, number one. I always ask the chief, and I ask her regularly, you know, she comes and says, this is what we need, this we need for officers, but I keep asking her, what's your dream list? Because the ask she does is what we can muster up. It's not what actually the community needs. We have, at any time, and still, 3 or 4 officers patrolling 5 patrol districts. We have constant calls for people either stealing catalytic converters. We have people in the downtown. We have in the Triangle. There's businesses that are being broken in. People are having people break into their backyards. We're having constant public safety issues left and right. And the police are doing their best, but they're working overtime. They don't have enough staff to manage everything that we need. And we're a growing city. And if we don't do this soon, we're going to be a city that I don't recognize anymore. This is a city I lived in my whole life, and I will be darned if I let it get to a point where it's not the city I recognize anymore. So public safety is number one, and we have to put all of our resources to making sure we're safe.
Thank you. Heidi.
Yeah, it's a really good question because it's hard to predict the next 4 years. I mean, I think 4 years ago we would have never predicted that we had a once-in-a-lifetime sort of event that changed all of our lives and upended them. So the whole 5-year question, what are you going to do in 5 years? I don't know. I don't know what's coming at me, but I'm going to take it head on. And I think there's a lot of valid responses as far as public safety that's immediately in our face, as far as our houselessness issue and people not feeling safe in the catalytic converters. I think as a city government entity, our building is failing, and that's something that we're going to have to address in the next year or so in order to ask our police to continue to function. And quite frankly, our city staff, our building is crumbling, and we're spending more money to maintain it than it would to be able to invest in a new building and be smart. We're also the biggest landowner in downtown, and that's something, if we want to create more businesses, we need to be able to free up that land for businesses or houses or those sorts of things. We also have, regional issues and working regionally. Tigard is really important, and we have our own identity, but we are also in a region that works together. And one of the things that I'm most proud of the last 4 years is really building the relationships that I can call anybody in the region who I've worked with to earn their endorsement, and to have that conversation firsthand and to work together in partnership. We're talking local mayors all the way up to our state representatives and our congressional candidates. So I'm prepared to have those conversations.
Thank you, Heidi. Nick.
So I echo all of this. There are so many issues, and it's hard to pick just one, but I think one of the biggest struggles that we're going to have is around homelessness, obviously. I mean, we're already dealing with it as a big struggle, and I think that as Portland bans camping, we're going to see a large influx of homeless activity moving our direction, because they're going to want to continue that lifestyle, and if it's not allowed in Portland, they're going to look to the suburbs and the places that they can move just a little ways away, where we don't necessarily have the resources to ban it in the same way that Portland is. So I think we're going to see that increase. That also plays into public safety and whatnot that we have around us, and the way that people feel in our community. That the transient activities makes people feel less safe, whether they are or not. It just makes them feel that way. It also leads to more crime. We have more property crimes that have been exploding, and that's part of that whole thing. So they kind of play together, but we're going to have to be loud pushing back against that, and pushing back against Portland and what's happening here, and saying, no, this isn't allowed. Like, we don't want to be that for you. We're not your mat that you can push everything over. So We have to be loud at that, and we need somebody who's going to be able to dedicate the time and energy to make changes here. You know, this is turning into, as our community is growing, this is turning into more and more of a full-time job. And we need somebody who's going to act like that and dedicate their time to it to make those changes, because it takes, you know, if you want to call a legislator or something, I mean, they like working during the day too, not at night. So you got to be available to do that during their hours. So.
Thank you. Maureen.
Thanks, Dan. So do I modify it to 2 years? What do I want to accomplish in 2 years? And actually, in all seriousness, I will do that, because I will echo a lot of what these individuals on my right have said. The levy, the public safety levy, will come due, I believe, in 2024, as well as the facilities concerns. I've had the opportunity to participate in the Community Academy. I'll do a plug for that, where you really get an opportunity to dig a little bit deeper in what our city's police department provides. It's an outstanding opportunity to engage citizens. And so I strongly advocate that we look into what are the options to improve facilities, and that has to happen in short order, as well as that levy. That goes back to one of the lowest permanent tax rates, that levy is required to really sustain a police department. So I support both those pieces. And I think also back to a budget concern, COVID dollars have been used to really fund some important staffing components with the city. Those dollars will also roll off in a couple years. So what is the strategy to keep a homeless staff coordinator, or some of those investments in our businesses as COVID dollars dry up, but are essential to continuing to grow and support Tigard? So I think a lot of those things are short order in 2 years. So thanks.
Thank you. Karen.
I think the issues that we're going to see in the next 2 years and 4 years are, again, the issues that we're already seeing. Transportation is a huge piece. Housing is a huge piece, and definitely public safety. I think the levy was great for creating a Band-Aid fix, but we need a permanent fix. We need the police officers that were able to be hired from the levy to be permanent employees in Tigard, because as we continue, well, we already needed them, but as we continue to grow, we're going to need more. And so making sure that everybody feels safe here is important. Also, communication and engagement is a huge piece of the puzzle. A lot of people are not here. I appreciate that everybody who's here tonight is here, but we're a huge community. This place should be blown out with supporters, and it's just not happening. So I agree with the idea of let's go to them. Let's go to the streets and get people involved and let them have a voice. And that's where I'm going to stand out. I have the gift of gab, but I also have the gift of listening. And I love finding solutions to problems, and just finding out what other people think is the problem. It's my job as a city councilor is going to be to represent all of you. So getting you and other people in Tigard involved, I think, is going to be the most important piece to focus on.
Great, thank you. So that concludes the question and answer period, and now we're going to take the minute and a half for each one of you to give a closing statement, and we'll start with you, Tom.
Actually, we were going to reverse the order.
Oh, sorry. What do you want to start with?
Let's start with Karen. Okay, why don't we start with Maureen, since Karen just went.
And we'll head down.
I know who goes next. Okay. Well, thank you again for those of you who came this evening to participate, and for those that are listening on Facebook. It's been a great opportunity for the opportunity to be city councilor. What I'd like to share is, when I introduced myself, I talked about lessons learned on the school board and the engagement around tough budgeting decisions. I'd also like to talk about the skills I learned in the last couple of years that I served on the Tigard Tualatin School Board, and that was around March 2020, when the district was required to shut down our buildings because of COVID. What I want to talk about is the creation of Pack with Pride, and what that did when we closed our buildings. We also closed a food supply to many of our community members. So I had the great fortune of working with my board member partner, Ben Bowman, Foundation, Teachers Union, Student Union, and the school district to immediately create an opportunity to connect with our community and ensure that food services were provided. My role in that, I felt like, was the liaison of working with the district. What were our facility needs? What were our supplies? What were our staffing components that were required? I continued to work with Washington County, pulling resources into Pack with Pride to help with equipment needs, as well as working with the Oregon Food Bank to ensure that we got food bank status, which then connected us with multiple grocers and opportunities to create sustainability on our food sources. This was an opportunity to work.
We can, good new ideas and fresh perspectives never hurt anything. And Tigard's in need of that big time. You know, we've had the similar types of direction, and high engagement is a big thing, you know, being willing to talk to anybody, whether they agree with you or not, engaging with people through social media, through email. You know, anybody who's reached out to me, you got a response. I can guarantee it because we respond to everything. So I think that's the first step in leadership.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Heidi.
Thank you. Tonight you heard from all of the candidates for City Council and for the mayor's role. You heard different answers and solutions to the questions, and hopefully I think you got to know each of us a little bit more. Voting is an act of faith. We can't know everything that's possibly going to come before Tigard over the next few years, but I hope that you believe in my vision for Tigard and know that my values guide me in any of the issues that come before council. In my day job as the head of finance for a $50 million agency, integrity and honesty is at the core of everything I do. It has to be in order for the owners and the leadership to trust in what I do and to help guide the business. That guides me as a human being and a person. Those are fundamental values in every day that I live. I also lead with seeing human beings first, not just sending into the void of email or people I meet out in Tigard or the community that comes to share who very much disagrees with something that we're doing. We're all human beings, and I lead with kindness and compassion and understanding first. I'm the only candidate who has earned the endorsement locally and regionally of the people who know what it's like to do this job. I have support from both Mayor Snyder and Mayor Cook, as well as current and previous councilors. And regional and state leaders as well. I've built those relationships over the past 4 years in order to make those phone calls at 8 o'clock at night and get those answers. I love Tigard, and I hope my vision for Tigard of being a safe community where everyone is welcome aligns with your vision, and I've earned your vote. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for tuning in and spending your Wednesday with us.
Thank you. John.
Everyone, thank you, Dan and Mike and Brandon for all this, and for everyone that attended this. This race does come down to experience, availability, and passion. And I've shown that through the years of being on council, especially when hard times hit. I know when the riot hit downtown Tigard, I was down there for 2 days with business owners. I was helping put up plywood on windows. I was helping the business owners. I was sitting there side by side with them in the evening when it got cold. And I've had business owners since then say thank you for being there. I was scared. I didn't know what was going to happen to my business. During when COVID happened, I was there for residents. I was there for business owners. I have the passion. I have the time. I made myself available. I've been out there helping people, representing them, being part of the community. That's what we need in a mayor, someone that's out there, that's visible, that's being seen, and is there every day, day in and day out. I'm also on many committees, locally, regional, and nationally. On the national level, I've fought and gotten a lot of extra support for the city of Tigard. And so I am on the National League of Cities Board of Directors. And that's what we need. We need someone that's plugged in, that has the connections with that. But really what it comes down to is Tigard is a great community, and we need someone that's out there every day and is available at a time's notice to be able to pick up and go meet with someone, to go lobby down in Salem, to go back to DC. And if we need to go back there and get dollars for Hall Boulevard or 99W, we need to be able to have those connections, which I already have in place, and the availability to go out there and do that. I thank everyone for being here tonight, and I appreciate your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom.
So I'm running again after a 2-year gap, and one of my friends said, "What are you doing? You are out. Why do you want to get back in?" And I said, well, you know, good point. I mean, it is just a volunteer job, and it's a 4-year term, and it's a big commitment. But I like it. I'm pretty good at it. I'm proved that I can talk with the staff. Really, we don't run the city. The mayor and the council doesn't. You know, we have paid professionals, city managers, and department heads that run the city. We're just kind of the board, the vision, and I like that. And I like to be part of a team, and I like to see Tigard succeed. So that's why I'm running, and thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. E.
Thank you. Good evening again, everyone. Thank you so much for sitting here for almost 2 hours. I know you probably have better things to do on a Wednesday night. Again, my name is Wu. I'm running for Tigard City Council because I believe I will bring a good balance of hands-on experience and fresh idea to City Council. Again, I've been serving on the Planning Commission for the past 7 years. I have worked on hundreds and hundreds of land use cases that provided balance and practical solution to a variety of planning and transportation issues. I'm honored to have earned endorsement of a wide range of local elected leaders and community organizations. They don't always see eye to eye, but they all endorse me because they know that I'm a consensus builder and I'm willing to listen to people from all walks of life. I truly believe that we can only achieve great things when we all work together towards a common goal. I've been a resident, thank you, of Tigard for 16 years. I'm really truly grateful for the city and the community that provided everything that you have provided for me and my family. And tonight, I humbly ask for your vote so I can continue to serve you and the city in the next 4 years. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Karen.
Thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you, Dan and the Broadway Rose Theater. Thank you, Mike, for not only creating this platform, but also the Tigard Live questions that you've offered to us and given us an opportunity to let you all get to know us. This has been an amazing experience for me. This is my first time running, and I'm amazed what I've learned already in such a short period of time. As a mom in this community who plans to continue to raise my kids in Tigard, all of the things that are important to you are also important to me. And so I'm excited to have the opportunity to talk with you and listen to you and fight for you and with you for making changes that need to happen here, but also continuing to make Tigard the great place that it is. I love it here. I'm here and I want to give back the knowledge and the skills that I have because I care so much about Tigard. And I know that that's true for all of you too, because you wouldn't have been here on a Wednesday night for 2.5 hours if it weren't true. So thank you all for taking the time, and also thank you in advance for the opportunity to hopefully earn your vote on November 8th.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, candidates. That does it for this evening's forum. We appreciate it, and we look forward to November 8th. Thank you.